"Don't you dare make a sound," Clara whispered, her hand gripping my wrist so tight I thought she might break it. "Come with me, right now." I had known Clara for 22 years. She had held my hand at my husband's funeral. She had made me soup when I couldn't get out of bed for 3 days after he passed. She had never, not once in all those years, spoken to me in that tone. Urgent, frightened, like something was on fire and only the two of us could see the smoke. It was the evening of my son's engagement dinner. The house was full of flowers. Daniel had ordered white roses and eucalyptus everywhere, the kind of arrangements that cost more than my first car. 46 guests were already seated in the backyard under the string lights. Champagne was being poured. Someone was laughing too loudly near the fountain. Everything looked exactly the way a celebration is supposed to look. And Clara was pulling me into the laundry room. "Clara, what?" "Shh." She pressed her finger to her lips so hard the tip went white. Then she pointed to the small window above the washing machine, the one that looked out onto the side driveway, behind the rose bushes. I had to stand on my toes to see through it. My reading glasses were on the kitchen counter, but I could see well enough. Vivienne was standing next to a black sedan I did not recognize. She was still wearing the cream-colored dress she'd worn to dinner, the one she'd called understated when she twirled in it for Daniel that morning. Her hair was still pinned up perfectly, but the expression on her face that was something I had never seen before. Not in all the months she had been coming to this house, not in all the dinners she had charmed her way through, not once. She was not the soft, gentle woman my son believed he was marrying. She was standing with her arms crossed, her jaw tight, and she was speaking very quickly to a man leaning against the driver's side door. He was broad-shouldered, mid-40s, wearing a collared shirt that was wrinkled like he'd been driving for hours. He did not look happy either. I could not hear what they were saying through the glass. I turned to Clara. "Who is that?" Clara's eyes were steady. "His name is Marcus Webb. I looked him up this afternoon." "You looked him up?" I stared at her. "Why did you look him up?" She reached into the front pocket of her apron and pulled out her phone. She had a photo pulled up on the screen. It was a screenshot of a Facebook profile. The account was set to public. The name at the top read Marcus Webb. And in the cover photo, Marcus Webb was standing in front of a lake somewhere, laughing, with his arm around a woman who was unmistakably Vivienne. She was wearing a different dress. Her hair was longer, but it was her. There was no question. Beneath the photo, the caption read, 10 years and counting. Happy anniversary, my love. The post was dated 14 months ago. I felt the laundry room tilt. "Clara." My voice came out too quiet. "When was this posted?" 14 months ago, 4 months before she met Daniel. I looked back through the window. Vivienne was jabbing her finger at Marcus now. He caught her hand and held it, not gently, and she yanked it away. Then she looked toward the house. Instinctively, both Clara and I stepped back from the window at the same time. "Does she see us?" I breathed. "No." Clara was certain. "The light's off in here. She can't see anything." I pressed my back against the washing machine. My heart was doing something it had no business doing at 64 years old. I thought about Daniel. Right now, he was out in that backyard, probably refilling someone's champagne, probably smiling that wide, open smile that looked exactly like his father's. He had been so happy these past months, the happiest I had seen him since we lost Robert. He had called me in February, the night after his 3rd date with Vivienne, and said, "Mom, I think she's the one." And I had cried a little because I wanted that for him so badly. I wanted him to have what Robert and I had. I thought about the papers. 3 days ago, Daniel had told me he was planning to add Vivienne to the deed of the lake house, Robert's lake house. The one we had bought together 31 years ago. The one where Daniel learned to fish, where we scattered some of Robert's ashes in the water. Daniel said it was a gesture of commitment. He said Vivienne made him feel like he could trust someone completely again. I had said nothing at the time. I had smiled and said it sounded like a meaningful thing to do. Now I wanted to put my fist through the wall. "How long have you known?" I asked Clara. "Since this afternoon." She took back her phone and swiped to another screenshot. This one was a public records site. It showed a marriage certificate. Marcus James Webb and Vivienne Elaine Cross, married in Savannah, Georgia, 7 years ago. There was no divorce record attached. "I've been searching all day." Clara said. "I can't find any record of a divorce filed in Georgia, South Carolina, or Florida. I even checked Tennessee. She's still married to him." The words felt strange in my mouth, mechanical, like I was reading them off a page. "As far as I can tell." I stared at the marriage certificate on Clara's screen for a long moment. Then something else occurred to me, something that sent a different kind of cold through my chest entirely. "Clara, does Vivian have any children?" Clara looked at me for just a half-second too long before she answered. That half-second told me everything. "She has a daughter," Clara said. "Her name is Lily. She's 6 years old. She lives with Marcus." I sat down on the edge of the washing machine because my legs had made a decision without consulting me. A little girl, 6 years old, named Lily. My son did not know this woman existed. He had no idea that somewhere there was a 6-year-old child who called Vivian her mother. He had no idea that the man standing in our driveway right now might legally still be her husband. He had no idea that in 3 days he was planning to put her name on a piece of property that had belonged to our family for over 3 decades. I heard laughter from the backyard, someone tapping a glass, someone calling for a toast. "I have to go tell him," I said. Clara caught my arm again. "Not yet. Clara, listen to me." Her voice was low and firm, the voice she used when one of my grandchildren was about to do something dangerous. "If you go out there right now and say something, she will deny it. She will say the photo is old, the marriage ended, the records haven't caught up, whatever story she's prepared. She's been planning this, Helen. She has answers ready." And Daniel, Clara paused. "Daniel loves her. He won't want to believe it. Not yet. Not without more." I hated that she was right. I had seen it before, in other families, other situations. The person who brings the accusation becomes the villain. The person being accused plays the victim. And the person in the middle, the one being protected, ends up feeling attacked from both sides. "Then what do we do?" I asked. "We get proof he can't argue with." Clara had already thought this through. While I had been chatting with guests and refilling the breadbasket and pretending to admire Vivian's earrings, Clara had been working. She had already called her nephew, who worked in family law. He had confirmed that the Georgia marriage record was active and current, no dissolution, no legal separation on file. He had also told Clara something else. Marcus Webb had filed a missing persons report on Vivian 8 months ago in Chatham County. He claimed she had left with no explanation and had not returned to their home. The case was still technically open because Vivian had eventually made contact with authorities to confirm she was safe, but she had provided no address and no information about her whereabouts. She had vanished from one life and walked straight into another one. She ran, Clara said, from him, from the child, from whatever her life was there, and she landed here. I thought about the way Vivian had looked at our house the first time Daniel brought her. The way she had touched the crown molding in the front hallway and said, quietly, "This is a real home." I had thought she was being sentimental. I had thought it was sweet. She needed a new start, I said, and my son was going to give her one. Clara nodded slowly. Through the laundry room wall, I could hear the party continuing, glasses clinking, my sister-in-law's big laugh, the soft music Daniel had put on. And beneath all of that, faint but unmistakable through the window, the sound of Vivian and Marcus still talking in the driveway, their voices tighter now, the conversation getting shorter and harder. "What does he want?" I asked. "Marcus. Why is he here tonight?" "I think he followed her," Clara said, "or someone told him. He drove 4 hours to be here. He wants to talk to her, or he wants to stop her." Clara glanced toward the window. "He still loves her, I think. Or maybe he wants her to come back for Lily. I don't know. But he didn't come here to cause a scene. He came to the side of the house. He's not trying to walk through the front door." I looked out the window again. Vivienne had stepped closer to Marcus now. Her posture had changed, less rigid, almost pleading. She put her hand on his forearm. He looked down at it, then back at her face, and I could see, even from this distance, even through the small, smudged glass, that whatever passed between them in that moment was not the interaction of two people who were strangers to each other. There was history there. There was grief. And in 3 days, Vivian was going to be listed as co-owner of Robert's Lake House. I made a decision. "I'm going out there," I said. Clara opened her mouth. Not to the party, I said. To the driveway. She stared at me. Helen. She doesn't get to do this in my driveway, in my house. On the night of my son's engagement dinner, I kept my voice very level, very calm, the way I had learned to do in 30 years of nursing when everything around me was falling apart. I am going to go speak to that man, and I am going to hear what he has to say. Clara was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I'm coming with you. We went out through the side door, the one by the utility room that led to the driveway without passing through the backyard. The night air was warm and heavy, the way Georgia evenings get in late May, and the string lights from the party threw just enough glow around the corner to light the driveway in a pale, uneven gold. Vivienne heard us before she saw us. She turned around, and for one fraction of a second, just one, I saw it. The flicker of something crossing her face before she arranged it back into composure. Fear, maybe, or the particular panic of someone who has been managing two different worlds and just watched them collide. Helen. Her voice was warm. It was always warm. That was what made her so good at this. This is an old friend of mine. He was in the area and Marcus Webb, I said. The warm voice stopped. Marcus straightened up from the car. He was taller than I expected. He looked at me with something exhausted in his eyes, the kind of tired that lives behind the eyes and doesn't sleep off. Ma'am, he said, I'm sorry to come here like this. I didn't mean to. You don't have anything to apologize to me for, I said. Vivienne stepped forward. Helen, I can explain. I'd like to hear from him first, I said. And then I looked at Marcus Webb, this man who had driven 4 hours on a Friday night to find his wife at another man's engagement party, and I asked him one question. Does your daughter know where her mother is? The quiet that followed that question was the loudest thing I have ever heard. Marcus's jaw tightened. He looked at Vivienne. She looked at the ground. Lily asks about her every day, Marcus said. His voice was careful, controlled, but I could hear what was underneath it. Every single day. I had a daughter once who used to ask for me when I was working nights. My mother told me later that she would come downstairs at 2 in the morning and stand by the door and say, Is Mommy coming home? And my mother would say yes, and hold her hand, and take her back to bed. I thought about a little girl named Lily doing the same thing. I turned to Vivienne. I was not cruel. I did not want to be cruel, but I was done being fooled. Here is what is going to happen, I said. You are going to tell Daniel the truth tonight. All of it. You are going to tell him about Marcus, about Lily, about Georgia, about the marriage. You are going to tell him before this party ends. Vivienne's eyes filled. Helen, please. I can explain the whole situation. Marcus and I have been separated for over a year. It was a terrible marriage. The divorce papers are being filed. This is all more complicated than it. If it's complicated, I said, then it will take more than one conversation to sort out. But my son will not be signing anything with your name on it until there is nothing complicated about it. Not this week. Not until every piece of it is clear. You're going to ruin this. Her voice shifted. The warmth cracked. Something harder showed through underneath, and I recognized it for what it was, not cruelty exactly, but desperation, the kind that makes people do things they would not otherwise do. You don't understand what I was running from. You don't understand what my life was. I just wanted. I know what you wanted, I said quietly. And I'm sorry your life was hard. I mean that. But wanting a better life does not give you the right to build it on top of mine. She cried. Genuinely, I think. I don't believe it was entirely performance. But I had worked as a nurse for 30 years, and I knew the difference between someone who was sorry for what they'd done and someone who was sorry they'd been caught. Vivienne's tears were real. Her remorse was real. But her plan was also real, and that plan had included my son, my family's property, and the complete erasure of a 6-year-old child who asked for her mother every day. I left her in the driveway with Marcus and went back inside to find Daniel. He was standing near the dessert table, talking to his cousin about some renovation project. He had a piece of chocolate cake in his hand, and he was laughing. He looked so young when he laughed. He always has. Even now, almost 40, he looks like the boy who used to fall asleep in the back of the car with his shoes still on. Mom. He smiled when he saw me. Where have you been? Aunt Patricia has been looking for... I need to talk to you, I said. Right now, away from everyone, he read my face. He's always been able to read my face, even when he was small. He set the plate down. We went to Robert's study, the small room off the hallway that still has Robert's books on the shelves and Robert's reading chair in the corner. I have not changed a thing in that room in 2 years. Daniel sat in the reading chair, and I sat across from him on the ottoman, and I told him everything, slowly, clearly, with Clara's phone in my hand so he could see every screenshot himself. I did not tell him what to feel. I did not tell him what to do. I just told him what was true. He listened without interrupting. That is something I have always loved about my son. He listens all the way through. He doesn't jump ahead or argue before he's heard everything. Robert was the same way. I watched him look at the marriage certificate. I watched him look at the Facebook photo. I watched something in his face move through surprise, and then disbelief, and then a long, still moment that I recognized as the thing that comes before grief. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. "She has a daughter," he said finally. Not a question, just saying it out loud. "Her name is Lily. She's 6. He nodded very slowly. Like he was receiving information his brain needed extra time to process. "Does the little girl know? She's been asking for her mother," I said. Daniel closed his eyes. I did not rush him. I sat on the ottoman in Robert's study with my hands in my lap, and I let my son sit with what he had just learned. The party was still going on outside. Someone had put on a different song. I could hear glasses, voices, the warm, ordinary sounds of people who did not yet know what had just happened in this house. After a while, Daniel opened his eyes. They were wet, but he did not cry. He stood up. He was steady on his feet. He looked exactly like his father for a moment, that particular quality of quiet that Robert had when he had made up his mind about something. "I need to go talk to her," he said. "She's outside, in the driveway, with Marcus." Something flickered across his face at that. He nodded once. Then he looked at me. "Mom." He paused. "Were you in the laundry room this whole time?" Despite everything, despite the weight of the last hour, I almost smiled. "Don't ask questions you don't want the full answer to." He pulled me into a hug then, a tight, brief one, the kind he hadn't given me since he was a teenager and too cool for long embraces. I held on for an extra second. Then he went out to the driveway, and I went back to the party to stall for time. I will not pretend that what came next was easy or clean. It was none of those things. Daniel spoke to Vivienne for a long time in the driveway while Marcus sat on the hood of his car, and Clara kept the desserts moving, and I answered questions about where the happy couple had gone, with vague smiles and comments about last-minute nerves. Some guests started to leave around 9:30. By 10, most of the family had drifted inside and the backyard was quieter. Vivienne did not come back inside. She and Marcus left together, eventually. I watched them from the kitchen window. Not a romantic, leaving nothing like that. A practical one. 2 people who had a conversation still to finish, a child still to think about, a tangle still to undo. Marcus held the car door. Vivienne got in without looking back at the house. And that was the last time I saw her. Daniel came in through the back door sometime after 10:30. He went to the refrigerator, got a glass of water, stood at the counter, and drank it. Then he turned around. The guests who were left, my sister-in-law, Daniel's college friend and his wife, Clara, Daniel's cousin, were all in the kitchen by then. No one quite knew what had happened, but everyone could feel that the evening had turned into something else. People had the careful faces of guests who are deciding whether to ask. Daniel said, simply, "The engagement is off. I'm sorry to end the night this way. The food was great, the company was better, and I'm glad you all came." And then he raised his water glass. To honesty. Even when it costs something. My sister-in-law started crying immediately, which she does at everything. Daniel's college friend poured himself another drink. Clara quietly began clearing glasses. I stood by the kitchen door and thought about Robert. I thought about how he used to say that our family had survived things because we told each other the truth, even when the truth was inconvenient, even when it hurt, even when someone had to be the one to carry it into the room. I thought about Lily. A little girl in Savannah who was going to wake up tomorrow morning and ask for her mother again. Whatever had gone wrong in that family, whatever had made Vivienne run, whatever Marcus had or hadn't done, Whatever complicated mess had driven a woman to abandon her child and build a borrowed life in someone else's home, that little girl was still there, still waiting. And whatever I thought of Vivienne, I hoped that somehow, in the unraveling of all this, Lily would at least get an answer. That is the thing about truth. It doesn't only protect the people you love. Sometimes it accidentally protects people you have never even met. Daniel slept in his old room that night. In the morning, I found him at the kitchen table with his coffee, looking out at the backyard where last night's flowers were still standing in their vases, white roses going slightly soft at the edges. Clara was already there, moving around the kitchen the way she always does, like a person who has decided that the best response to everything is to keep the coffee hot and the counter clean. "I should have done a background check," Daniel said, without turning around. "You were in love," I said. "That doesn't make you foolish. It makes you human. I was going to put her name on Dad's lake house, but you didn't." He turned his coffee cup in his hands. "How did you know to look? To check?" I thought about how to answer that. Clara and I exchanged a glance over his head. "I didn't look," I said. "Clara did." He looked at Clara then. She was standing at the counter with her back to us, suddenly very focused on wiping something that was already clean. "Clara," he said. "Your father trusted me to look after this family," she said, without turning around. "I've been doing it for 22 years. I'm not about to stop now." Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then, "Thank you." She turned around just enough to give him one firm nod. Then she went back to her counter. I poured myself a coffee and sat down at the table with my son in the morning light, in the house his father and I had built, and we talked for a long time about nothing important, the roses in the backyard, the leak in the boat dock at the lake house that needed to finally be fixed, whether his cousin had gained weight or whether the lighting last night was just unflattering. Small, ordinary things. The kind of conversation that means nothing on its own but means everything as a whole. It means we are still here, we are still talking, we are still a family that sits at a table together in the morning and chooses each other. I have thought about Vivienne since then, more than I expected to. I don't wish her harm. I genuinely don't. I think she was a woman who was drowning and reached for the nearest thing that looked like solid ground, not particularly caring or perhaps not fully considering what she might pull under with her. I've seen that before. In patients, in neighbors, sometimes in myself on my worst days. But I think about Lily most. About a week after that night, I asked Clara to help me find an address, just a county and a last name to work from. We found a family advocacy organization in Chatham County, the kind that helps facilitate contact between parents and children in complicated custody situations. I wrote them a letter. I did not include my name. I just said that I had reason to believe a child named Lily Webb in their county might benefit from their services, and that the circumstances of her family situation might warrant a welfare check. I don't know what came of it. I may never know. That is the other thing about truth sometimes. You can only carry it so far, and then you have to set it down and trust that someone else will pick it up. Daniel is doing fine. Better than fine, actually. A few months after the engagement dinner, he called me on a Tuesday afternoon, not a birthday, not a holiday, just a regular Tuesday, and said, "I just wanted to tell you I'm okay, actually okay, not pretend okay." And I said that was the best thing I had heard all year. And he said, "Mom, were you really in the laundry room the whole time?" And this time I laughed and said yes, on top of the washing machine, in the dark, in my good dress for the party. And he laughed too, the real laugh, the wide open one, the one that looks like his father. I am 64 years old. I have worked 30 years in nursing. I buried my husband 2 years ago, and I have built a life that is smaller than it used to be, but more honest than it has ever been. I have learned that love is not just tenderness. It is also the willingness to go into a laundry room in the dark and look through a window at something that will require you to walk back out and say a hard thing to someone you would give anything to protect from hard things. My husband used to say that the truth is a kindness in disguise, that it usually doesn't look like one at first, that it often shows up dressed badly and at the wrong time and in an inconvenient place, a laundry room, a side driveway, a child's question at 2 a.m, but it shows up. If you let it, it shows up. And to you, wherever you are, listening to this story, if you feel something is wrong, trust that feeling. Not to destroy anything, not to burn everything down, but to look. Just look. Sometimes that is all it takes. Sometimes looking is the bravest and most loving thing you will ever do.